For weeks, we've heard rumors of reinfections for COVID-19. Now we've got our first set of documented cases. Let's explore what that data means and how it shapes our understanding of COVID-19 and the way we treat it. Welcome to Shareable Science. Science you can share. From our earliest video discussions about COVID-19, we've talked about the possibility of being reinfected. And we've heard lots of stories and rumors of individuals who we thought they had recovered and their symptoms came back, or they had a positive test after their symptoms went away. Up until this point, we've thought that the majority of those are for one of two reasons. Either they're long haulers, so their symptoms just last a while, and the symptoms had gotten better but then came back, because we know that that sometimes happens. Or a positive test long after symptoms have diminished is thought to be because it just takes the body sometimes longer to clear the debris of the virus, and so you've still got bits and pieces of the virus genetic code, and a test would pick that up. Now we've actually got 7 documented cases that are true reinfections. And let me tell you what I mean by a documented reinfection. Scientists were able to sequence the genetic code between the first infection and the second infection, and found a small number of changes in the genetic recipe of the SARS-CoV-2 virus that tells them, yes, these are truly 2 different infections. Now, the genetic code is incredibly similar. That's not to say that there are lots of differences between the first and second infection, or that there are lots of strains around out there, but just small differences that just give us a hint, or actually tell us definitively, we're talking about 2 different infections. So here's the data of those 7, and you can see the number of cases, the location, the age and gender, and the amount of time between the first and second infection. So right off the bat, you can see it's a relatively small number, scattered across the globe, a range of ages, some young, some older, males and females, and the window between infections runs from a matter of weeks to a period of months. Also, the first 6 infections that I've listed on the board, the second infection was less severe than the original infection. In this case in Nevada, the second infection was actually more severe than the initial infection. So what do we make of all of this? All right, let's start with this. This is not surprising. SARS-CoV-2 is a coronavirus. It's a member of the coronavirus family. And we know that other members of this family cause the common cold, and that immunity only lasts for a window of maybe several months to 2 or 3 years. So we fully expect that we would see individuals that would be reinfected. So this is not something for us to panic about. I also want to be really certain that we don't generalize what 7 reinfections out of 27 million initial infections means. There's a lot more data that we need to gather before we can say anything definitive. And here are some of the key questions that we're going to be looking for as that data comes in. How common is this? Right now we can't answer that, but I can tell you, fortunately, labs have increased their testing ability, so we're able to more rapidly test and track. And public health labs are gaining in capacity to be able to sequence the genomes to be able to really tell, is this a true reinfection? What's the initial immune response? And in this case, I mean the first time an individual was infected, not with this reinfection. You can go back to our video on the 20th of July where we talk about the components of the immune system for more details. But in a nutshell, everyone who's infected who gets COVID-19 doesn't have the same immune response. Some people produce a really strong, lots of antibodies, a strong antibody response, lots of neutralizing antibodies. Other people produce a lower amount of antibodies, and some people don't seem to produce any antibodies at all. So we want to know if that initial response correlates with reinfection. Maybe people that had a mild case the first time didn't produce a lot of antibodies, and so they are at a higher risk of being reinfected. We just don't know. How severe is the reinfection? I told you 6 of the cases were less severe than the first time. And that's what we would typically expect from an immune response, that your body is primed to recognize an infection the second time around and reduce either the severity of the infection or the length of the infection. The case in Nevada, where the second infection was more serious, bears watching and looking for other cases like that before we can say that that's truly just an outlier. None of the cases were able to answer this question, which is how infectious were individuals in their second infection? Was the immune response enough that it was able to slow the spread so they weren't actually shedding active virus and infecting others? Or were they capable of infecting other individuals? That's going to be a really critical question that still needs to be answered. And then what does this mean about vaccines? Do we now need to worry that we're going to have to be thinking about vaccines on a quarterly basis? No, that's not what this means. Immunity that doesn't last for years doesn't mean that vaccines can't be effective. In fact, as we see more of these reinfections, we'll gain a better sense of what parts of our immune system seem to give us the most lasting immunity. And as we know that will actually help guide the selection of vaccines so that we select vaccine candidates that give us the longest protection possible. Okay, that's a lot of content from 7 cases around the globe. But I think it's important to get a sense of we shouldn't panic about this. We fully expect this. And while we can't generalize, here are some key questions that we want to better understand. I hope you find this useful. If you know other people who would benefit from this video, please send this their way. Thank you for watching Shareable Science Beyond the Blog. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.